So hopefully with this talk, you guys will have a good understanding of the issues that you have to kind of think about when you develop a mobile site, and chances are I think everybody here will, because the mobile platform, a lot of people are browsing the web. Wait, how do I say this? Mobile browsers are growing faster than desktop browsers, so chances are everybody here is going to be working on some form of a mobile site in the next couple of years as it just becomes more pervasive. So hopefully you'll just, like I said, understand the issues that you have to deal with and have a good, at least groundwork on which to build your mobile site. So the things that I'm going to talk about are the modules to use with Drupal 7, how it does browser detection. I have a couple tips on front-end development and theming. And then I'm just going to go over how you customize the user experience for the mobile platform, how you do analytics, and just a couple small tips and tricks to make it optimized for the mobile browser. Okay, so the first thing is, what module do you use? For Drupal 7, you use mobile tools. There's a couple others out there, but I think this one was the best supported on 7. And it's pretty, it does what it says. It does browser detection and redirection. So if your Drupal site detects that a mobile browser hit it, it'll send it to the mobile version of your site. It does a theme switching. So you can, so basically for your desktop site and your mobile site, you have different themes. And the kind of neat thing about this is it supports groups, like mobile groups. So you could actually even have a different theme for iPhone users, for Android users, and maybe mobile Opera users. So it's pretty neat capabilities in there. And then also, because a lot of times when you view a site with your phone, all the stuff that's on the desktop homepage, you don't want to see any of that stuff where it's too much for the mobile browser. So you can set it up to use a different front page for your Drupal site. So this is just an overview. Hopefully my infographic makes it easy to understand. So basically, the way it generally works, so you have a good high-level understanding, is that when a browser, either desktop or mobile, hits your main website, the mobile tools is going to try to detect whether or not it's a mobile browser. Then if it is, then it's going to do a redirect to the mobile URL. And then in the mobile URL, it also kicks in again and then applies all the mobile customizations for the phone. And these are just virtual hosts, so you're actually using the same document root. They're just two different virtual hosts in your Apache config. Does that make sense? Yeah. Has anybody done actually mobile development yet? Okay, cool. So you guys can double check on it. So, all right. So mobile browser detection. You have a couple options when it comes to selecting what tool you want to use to do to figure out if it's a mobile browser or not. The first one's mobile tools, which is pretty good. I mean, it's fine if you want to do just like the smartphones and desktop, like if you have an iPhone or an Android. It's just a big switch statement inside the code that tries to do a match on the user agent. And for like the major platforms like iPhone or Android, it detects that it works fine. However, with the project that I was working on, it also had to support feature phones, which is, I think, kind of ironic because it's not a smartphone and so it has less features. But anyways, so basically the browsers on there aren't as full-featured as one that you might have on your Android phone or your iPhone.
What's an example of a feature phone?
Like the clamshell phones,
Oh, yeah.
the slider phones.
Basically a not-so-smartphone with fewer features.
Gotcha.
Yeah, basically. So for if you're just worried about the iPhone or the Android, I think mobile tools is fine. But like for my project that wasn't working, so the next one I tried was BrowseCat, which when I took a look at it, has a lot bigger database of phones, which so more of the phones that I had to test were detected, but it didn't get all of them. And so finally I settled on Wurfel, which is actually an integration module with an open source library that has this even bigger database of phones. And so if you have to support the feature phones, I'd recommend just using the Wurfel module. There's no Drupal 7 version for it released yet, but then when I looked at it, there wasn't very much under the hood that was specific to Drupal 7. So after just tweaking the info file a little bit, basically it just works. And so you can download a patch off the Wurfel issue queue. I posted it up there if you're interested. Question?
Okay, do I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. The mobile tools module that you presented in slide 1, is that a mobile in the bar tools that's on that list, or is that capable of choosing any of those on this list?
Yeah, mobile tools is by default you can just use itself, or it also has a hook.
Right.
Is mobile device, I think.
It's got an agent detection lock.
Yeah, and so you can swap it out to use either the BrowseCat module or the Wurfel module.
Did you look at Device Atlas by any chance?
Device?
Atlas.
No, I
Device Atlas
haven't.
is Moby Forge's detector tool. It's about as powerful as well.
Oh, okay.
At least
All right.
as well.
I'll have to check that out.
Rich?
Yeah.
It's probably important to note at this point, if you have a lot of international audience, especially in the developing world, then these extended modules become really important, because in Africa, Southeast Asia, these places, everybody owns a data-capable Nokia, but nobody owns an Android, or very few people do.
Mm-hmm.
And these people do access the web. We know that. If they can get the stuff off of it, they will.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where this really becomes very, very big, much bigger than around here or in Europe.
Right. Right. So basically, Wurfel detected all the phones, and so if you have to support the feature phones, that's what I'd recommend going for. Wurfel for the win. All right. Okay, so with theming, I started off with the mobile theme, and like for if you're just worried about the smartphones like iPhone and stuff, you can do actually a lot of stuff. It supports CSS. I mean, it renders regular web pages awesome, right? Generally, like for like iPhone and Android. But then if you have to support the feature phones, then you have to kind of like strip out a lot of the advanced CSS, like all the padding and or don't try to go too crazy with it, like with the negative padding and or negative margins and stuff like that, because it just doesn't work. I didn't even try it. And you do, at least the only way I was able to get the layout I wanted is I had to use tables. So there's tables, and like it just really depends on which phones, like feature phones, that you have to support. I mean, a lot of it's nice that you can use basically like maybe like HTML3 level HTML constructs. So you could get like background colors and all that kind of theming type stuff. And it does support CSS, but it's really kind of hit or miss depending on which phone you're testing it on. Yeah.
How do you do testing? Are there online simulators for these phones, or do you just have to get the phones, or what do you do?
Actually, we had the phones, so we're just testing on the phones.
That's pretty hit or miss then, because you can't literally have a huge selection of phones here. So.
That's true. There are emulators though, at least for the iPhone and the Android. But if you have to do the feature phones, it's hit or miss. Yeah.
Firefox has a module that will pretend it has a certain user agent in it. So you can actually browse your normal domain with a Firefox
Nope.
browser.
You're jumping ahead.
I am a Nokia 95.
I'm not listening, because you told me that you're...
I dimly remember that Nokia has a test page that simulates some of their devices, but I'm not entirely clear on the
Okay.
stuff anymore. But if you Google around, you'll find.
Yeah.
Another thing that's kind of interesting to note is that since there's theme switching and you can have it for different devices, you could have a theme that has a little bit more CSS and
Mhm.
doesn't use tables and is a little bit closer to kind of the way we're used to working with stuff, and have that render for things like iPhones and Android, and then fall back to something that's a little bit simpler
Yeah.
like this for the feature phones.
Absolutely, if it's in your budget. So.
Yeah, budget's a big issue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you've got to look at who your market's going to be and find out what phones they're using.
Yeah.
What mobile devices they're using. Because
Absolutely.
You can easily spend time developing 6 or more separate
Yep.
themes for different groups.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and if the market's not there, so. Okay, so theming. So the reason why it's nice to use like the mobile theming, it gets you a lot of, it comes by default with a lot of the stuff that you should have in your mobile theme that I really don't want to spend time researching. So it has all the, whoops, whoa, what happened?
That's one.
Oh no, okay, no more mouse. Okay,
Oh, laser pointer?
okay, that's okay. So you can kind of see here that it gets all the XML namespaces for whatever they're used, but then it has some meta tags in there, and also the viewport, which is what kind of tells the mobile browsers what, you know, how big the page should be displayed in the little tiny screen on your phone. And also it has a bunch of nice default CSS. Which, I mean, it's totally editable, but the layout, type, color, miscellaneous, which is all fine in Danny. It's pretty straightforward. But the nice thing that it has is the responsive.css, which has the media queries. So if the browser, like for example, like with your iPhone, if the browser width changes, you can actually have different CSS styles apply to the document when you change the width of the browser. So like with phones that like an iPhone that
Really?
yeah, so it's pretty neat. So all that stuff's already in there, and then you can just jump into CSS. If it's in landscape mode, then just you could define like whatever you want really. So okay, so let's start off with the mobile theme, and then user agent switcher. So using the SandCamp as an example, if you just view it in regular Firefox, you get the SandCamp site, right? But then there's a user agent Firefox plugin, which lets you set up the user agent fields in Firefox, and Firefox will basically what's the word? Impersonate. That's it. Thanks. Impersonate whatever phone that you want, and then you'll get, once you hit refresh on it, it'll show you the mobile version. So that's pretty neat, and that's what I use for doing the page development if you want to tweak the layouts and stuff. And the nice thing about it is that it still has, you can use Firebug to inspect the CSS and the document object model and all that kind of stuff, the HTML. So it makes developing the pages from the front end a lot nicer too.
Of course, you get all the CSS capabilities of Firefox, not of the phone, right?
That's true too. So you have to kind of feel your way with that, depending. Yeah. So.
So this pretty much just verifies that you're delivering the CSS that you were expecting to deliver,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
and it gives you a screen that's about the right size. But other than that, it doesn't actually give you any of the behavior.
No.
It actually doesn't even resize the screen.
Yeah.
It basically just verifies that you are looking at the correctly redirected site.
That, and then depending if you have different logic based on what agent that's hitting the site, then you can use it to verify that too. So.
And Safari has developer tools too that'll do it too. So if you have to log in, logged out, and want to use two browsers, you can use Safari too.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. There's also a plugin I think for Chrome, but from what I hear, it's not very good. So.
Yeah, that's the last I heard. Was from
Yeah.
Firefox is much more reliable.
Right. Okay, so that's theming. All right, customizing mobile experience. So it's actually a lot simpler than you think. You don't have to use context or any of those like more advanced type features. Basically, you just use the blocks. So right here, you see the you have different themes, and you can define different different blocks for different themes and place them in different places. So you can see here for the mobile theme, I said, okay, at the top I want the header back navigation, and in the bottom I want the footer back navigation and a mobile footer, which never gets displayed on the desktop side. But then on the desktop side, then you can see that I have just more conventional blocks. You can see the highlighted areas. And that's basically it. If you want to display different content, you can do it for menus, for different blocks, and it was really a lot easier than I anticipated. Just basically just setting blocks up.
So the theme layer is block dependent then? Is that what I'm hearing? That I will actually, as I switch themes, or as the user agent chooses one theme over another, it's also going to choose a block structure rather than
Yeah,
other.
the block
Yeah.
system is theme dependent in
That's just
Drupal
an
in every
issue with
case.
Drupal, though. That's
Yeah.
nothing to do with mobile.
So
Right.
that's strange. I could have sworn I've been in and out of the blocks, and depending on which theme I'd activated or enabled, the blocks would stay the same all the time, and the theme would present the same blocks, not that I would have different named blocks.
Only if that theme is supporting all the same blocks by default.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so actually the way Drupal does it is that if the region names are the same across modules, then you could set it up that way. If they're not, and you've got regions published in one theme, then they'll show up in whatever the very first region you have defined in the next theme is, which is actually more aggravating than if they didn't show up at all, but it's just the way Drupal works. But the whole blocks tied to a theme is totally independent of mobile development. That's just the way Drupal deals with blocks and themes.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's definitely a mobile issue that the less content per page, the better. So if you look at the standard comment block, or whatever the block is that does that, it's got a couple of buttons, it's got a text input area. Is that the same block in mobile theme 1 and mobile theme 2 and mobile theme 3 on which one's the desktop? Is it the same block?
Generally, yes, unless you do some overrides for that particular theme.
So is it, oh, okay.
You might make a different copy
Now I remember
of the
that.
block and assign that one in the mobile theme
And
and assign the desktop copy of the block in the desktop
Yeah.
block
Right.
settings.
So the management task is transparent of platform development that you're deploying to.
You could.
Yeah.
It's overkill for. He's asking if context would work, and I think using blocks the way that Rich is describing is one way of dealing with content distinguished on a mobile site versus the regular site. You could do more complex things. You could use
Right.
context or
I meant
You have to
misunderstanding
be-
the block system though when I asked the question.
you could have separate template files that you can get as kind of complex and sophisticated as you want. But I think the block scheme is by far the easiest to manage, and it probably suffices for most sites.
Right.
If you find you do need to use context though, you like, I had a site that on the mobile and the desktop, like they wanted to automatically just
Like the block system in Drupal, and I virtually never
Yeah.
use it because I
Yeah.
am a fan of context and I always use context. But that's more of a preference. Context is one good way to do it. How Rich is doing certainly works for this application.
Right.
By context, are you referring to the CTools context or
Yeah.
something else?
No, the context
context module.
module, which is a
Okay, cool.
Drupal
Right.
plugin.
Which
Right.
is separate, which conflicts with the CTools
Something
panels.
conflicts for CTools? No.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, a couple other things. With analytics, you can't assume that you're going to have JavaScript, which is how Google Analytics works, and so you have to use their workaround where you actually pay attention. So there's a lot of modules that will just jam in unnecessary JavaScript or CSS that is totally useless and just occupies bandwidth for a mobile site. So what I had to do in one of my custom modules was I had to do a JavaScript alter hook. And so you can just see here, I'm calling the Mobile Tools API to see if it's a Mobile Tools device. And I actually think this is kind of an API quirk. You'd expect it to return a Boolean, like true or false, but it returns actually an array. So you have to actually check if the type in the returned array is mobile to see if it's actually mobile. Otherwise, it's always going to return, what's an array? True, I guess, which kind of gummed me up for a bit. And then I just set the JavaScript array to null, and that'll just strip out all the JavaScript that gets embedded in your mobile theme. So that's a tip.
That's a new hook in Drupal 7, right? I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So that's a pretty cool.
I haven't explored that one, but that's a good hook to know.
Yeah.
Altering the JavaScript.
And you could also, there's also a CSS alter hook too. So if you want to, if I didn't, in the project that I was working on, there was nothing that was jamming in unnecessary CSS. It was all just from the theme, so that was cool. So I didn't have to implement a
It's nice to know that
CSS.
those two new hooks are available in Drupal 7 now.
Yeah, so and that'll strip out any unnecessary JavaScript. The other thing, especially for feature phones, another thing to watch out for is some feature phones have really small memory. So like if you have like a I don't know, like terms and conditions page that should be renderable on a mobile phone, we found that it just doesn't work on one of those mobile phones that have small memory
When the terms and conditions were really large. You mean?
Yeah, it had a really long terms and conditions, and it would only get to maybe like a third of the page. So one of the things you might have to watch out for is just breaking it up into separate pages so the mobile phones can handle
Maybe
it.
do the first sentence and then dot, 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 and then the last sentence.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's the other thing.
Hit the lawyers and make them write proper English in terms.
Yeah, I know. It should be 5 sentences or less.
Yeah.
So okay, and that's it. Those are the tips and tricks that I found from doing a mobile site in Drupal 7. If anybody has any other good tricks, tips.
Did you explore jQuery mobile?
No, we didn't. Cause the main thing that we had to support was feature phones. We didn't even
right.
bother with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, jQuery mobile is another really interesting
Yeah.
package that I had a little bit of experience with. It's interesting because it requires jQuery 1.5, which doesn't come in 6. So you need 7 to be able to use it. And it's a really nice package for making things kind of look like apps really quickly. It kind of loads everything up, puts lots of AJAX in there, so decreases your bandwidth, and converts a lot of HTML5 type elements into kind of structured arrays and stuff. So.
It's quite a big movement that the Aptana crew have teamed up with the cross-platform team.
Yeah.
Including Ajax.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really neat, but it's very neat.
Yeah, it's pretty advanced. I think it's still in alpha, but it's pretty cool. I've seen it. So, like when you're just browsing your page, it'll do the animations like the page flip or the. So it's pretty neat. You can get some really cool UI effects just on a mobile site that are very app-like with jQuery mobile. So.
And so I guess that would be the development platform for apps. So to go from, I have a desktop server-based website, I want it to appear as an app,
Yeah.
become an app. You'll be able to
Right.
slicing each other off. Exactly.
Yeah. It also, I think if I remember right, it does a lot to the actual HTML, so it's mobile optimized. So,
So that's
yeah.
my concern with this one is the CSS issue and the JavaScript issue. The number of HTTP requests you make per page is much more critical on mobile devices.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it,
Mhm.
everybody talks about you must use white server to see that your website. If you make 20 HTTP requests on a desktop page, it's no issue. If you do it 20 on a mobile phone, that will bring your page to a stop.
Right,
So
absolutely.
I'm curious about Drupal 7. My guys have been telling me D6 and D7 will optimize CSS, they'll optimize JavaScript, they'll make sure that only one request is coming in. Is that true of this? Because that's a big issue.
Yes.
That's important.
Yeah.
You get that out of Drupal 4.
Right, so if I went and just put blocks and said be a mobile theme, I would have as few HTTP requests.
Well,
Well,
it's performance settings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can have it aggregate CSS and JavaScript separately,
Right.
and that could take 20 JavaScript files down to one, or as many.
That's the kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do that.
up front.
The two ways you can do that are with CSS and JavaScript, and that's just in Drupal core. Another thing I kind of like about jQuery Mobile is since it uses AJAX, it only really loads what it needs to. So when you make a new page request, you can set it up so only the content area is refreshing and it's only getting a little piece of data. And it gets it and loads it in through AJAX. So the page doesn't actually refresh, none of the outer stuff refreshes, so it reduces the amount of stuff you're requesting.
But all of that assumes a modern platform. for
Yes,
the phone.
exactly,
So
yeah.
you're ruling out the Nokias.
Right. Yeah.
and
So it's
the
not a good idea for the feature
Symbian
phones, as you
type
were
stuff.
saying.
Right.
When I was doing it, it was only iPhone and Android. No one really cared about the feature phones. So
Yeah.
in that case, it works great.
And the other thing to keep in mind, even though we're saying modern platforms, iPhone 3 has only caches 15 kilobytes. iPhone 4 caches 25 kilobytes. So once we aggregate all the Drupal CRUD, we're probably looking at 100 kilobytes or more. So some of his JavaScript alter stuff might come in really handy, regardless of aggregation, I think. That's a factoid that I just learned today. I mean, these caches are exceptionally small. And so for each page request for that, if you just send the whole crap load of stuff down, it'll get refreshed every time. On Wi-Fi, not a big deal. On 3G, it gets a little cumbersome once you're down on in the boonies. You probably don't want to hit the web at all when it comes down like that.
Rich, do you have any experience and any recommendations on whether you would or wouldn't use the same tool set doing a Drupal 6 based site?
I'd probably use the same tool set. Oh, that's the thing. I'd imagine if you're doing a Drupal 6 site, it'd be very similar.
You'd still use
you know,
mobile tools.
yeah.
Would probably be the,
Just looking through, what I was doing when I was putting the slides together, I didn't really find anything that was really specific to Drupal 7 other than the stripping out the JavaScript and the CSS.
so yeah, probably
Yeah.
the same.
In allowing the user to switch between mobile and full version
Mhm.
on the fly, there's some sites that has that little switch at the bottom. What's the best way to incorporate that into a mobile site?
I think there's a switch in the mobile tools. I don't remember. I remember seeing it briefly. Basically, you just hit the other site with, I think, something in the query string, and then it locks a cookie or something, I think.
Yeah, I
So
think it puts the link
yeah.
in the footer somewhere automatically, doesn't it?
I think it's a block that.
Or it's a
you
block
is it
or
a block?
something,
Yeah.
yeah. But I remember there's a provision in there somewhere, so
Yeah.
it makes it that easy on you.
Yeah.
Make it
Yeah.
easy.
Right. So. Okay.
I'd bring up Device Atlas again, though, of the list of possible detection agents.
Okay.
Device Atlas, and if anybody's doing any mobile development tool, MobiForge, MobiTools. Both
MobiForge.
websites, very, very useful for anything mobile. Not particularly Drupal yet, but very
Okay.
good for mobile.
Well, that's cool.
Extremely
Yeah.
efficient as well.
Yeah.
I think the good thing about that one and Wordful both is that you're basically depending on the library that gets refreshed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
regardless of what you have on your site. So it will not just age as you go away from that site and it's not maintained anymore. It will refresh itself, which is beautiful because you just don't know what devices
Yeah.
you're going to hit next year and the year after that. And so, and as the site slowly sort of,
Yeah. It's a pretty big
degrades
database.
into oblivion, at least it doesn't go completely away.
Right. So. Okay.
MobiForge, Device Atlas is the
Device
product,
Atlas,
MobiForge is the domain, and they're both, MobiForge and Wordful are both architectures for devices. So like you say, the library of
Oh.
user agents is independent of the tools that work out if it's a user agent. MobiForge you pay for a subscription, I believe, or there's a series of subscriptions. Wordful is just one guy in Germany who's been working on his own for like 1,000 years on it. But there's a good analytics package that's always an issue. We had to rewrite a brand new analytics package just to track the problem that you don't have JavaScript on mobile phones. And we showed that we had 50%
yeah.
of California users using regular logic devices, not super smart phones. This was only 2 years ago. So it was really interesting to get that stat back and know what we were going to invest in. And
Yeah.
we used that to say,
Absolutely.
okay, so we don't invest in the cutting edge, we invest in some good old time and effort to build out the old libraries. This was a couple of years ago, it's probably changed, but
Yeah. Oh, just with regards to analytics, tracking outbound links. One of the things that I had to do was, if you want to track outbound links on a mobile platform, what we did is we had a redirection page, right? Like an interstitial page between the mobile site and the destination site. So you would hit the interstitial page first, and then it would send the information to Google, and then redirect to the actual location. So that's another thing that we did.
it tracks the server as well. The server gets, I want to go here, the server gets to know that someone's trying to leave the site.
Yeah, yeah. So, which is important if it links to other URLs.
My question isn't really on this aspect, but it's somewhat related. Has anybody tried that titanium accelerator or the other one that's out there, that supposedly convert HTML code to app type, basically make them native apps?
Actually, that's kind of the Ajax team. The idea behind the Ajax model of a web page is exactly that.
I think he's talking about the
Titanium is an accelerator, right?
Yeah.
The accelerator just purchased the Aptano group, who've been doing Eclipse type editor tools for a long time, and they released an all-in-one product. It is actually quite good.
Okay.
It really is quite good.
Yeah, because does it compile it in the C? Is that what it ends up doing? Is it supposed to take it all the way?
Yeah, it'll put it fully native. But the capability it's got for front-end tools right now is really, really weak. That's why they bought the Aptano group to go in and get it going. So the technology underneath is really, really good. It's been used in a lot of libraries, so a lot of companies have been developing bits to use in that, and then handling the separate layers out. Give it another year.
Cool. Okay. Any other questions?
Cool. Well, thanks
Okay.
for coming
Thanks,
and tell us
guys.
about that, Rich.